class.
Uh-huh.
He said, "What's the stupidest thing in this room?" And some people put him, and that was the wrong answer. But the correct answer was the computers. Was the answer that he always took.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, we got you in here. We're good, Chris?
Yeah, we're good to go. We're live.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you working with us and being patient with us and getting through this. All I did was reset the computer, and here we go. So, but like I say, guys, if you're just tuning in on to Facebook and YouTube, which this is this is part 2 of our interview with Jordan Marshall, the Hobie B.O.S Angler of the Year. Jordan, I do appreciate you taking the time to come on with us tonight. Sorry I haven't have you on earlier. It's just like the holiday season. It's been crazy since then. So I'm glad to have you on. I want to talk to you tonight about your consistency the last couple of years, but also getting ready, like say for the following year. What all goes in an account for getting ready for let's say 2022. I know you just showed me earlier you had a pile load of stuff that you were going through. You said you're still waiting on a boat. You're still waiting on a bunch of things that you're waiting to come through to be ready for the coming up Hobie season. So, but how you doing, man? I mean, how was your holiday season?
It was fantastic. I enjoying the warm weather up until today. I just got right before we got on here. I just got a nice little text message from my work. I work for the local city where I live, and I got a nice little text message from street department saying they're probably going to need my help sometime this evening overnight. So
Oh yeah,
a
you
little
start
little
pushing
extra
snow.
pay before we start traveling again. So I can't say I can complain, but
Yeah,
our government holiday was off tomorrow, or supposed to be off tomorrow. So I'd have to. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't going to enjoy a nice sleep in and wake up and have a nice snow day to myself. But things don't always happen the way you dream.
that's right. So because y'all probably supposed to be getting some snow, right?
Yeah, I live in Maryville, which is just kind of southeast of Knoxville,
Mm-hmm.
and they're depending on what you listen to, but we're probably going to get somewhere between 4 and 8 inches right here in the edge of the mountains where I live.
Oh wow. Yeah, they just put us under a winter warning, a winter storm warning of I think it was 2 to 6 last I seen. So I don't know. I'm hoping. Luckily, fortunately, I don't have to worry about pushing snow or nothing like that. So, but we do give it to you guys that do that because that's some. It don't seem like much when you're riding around in a truck, but that's some long hours. You know what I mean? You guys put in some long hours doing that stuff. So, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I have some friends that used to do that. I went to diesel school with. They did that on the side, and it was them guys put in some hours. They made some good money though doing it. So,
Yeah, it's the craziest thing ever. Something you don't ever think about with me is if it's snowing pretty good and it's at night or even in the daytime, if you just are driving and doing nothing but looking at the snow and the ground in front of you, and everything's just white, when you first get out of it and walk back inside, everything is like a greenish tint. It's the weirdest thing ever because your eyes are trying to notice the differences in all the white. So
yeah,
you go back inside and you don't have that sun reflecting off the snow. Your vision's very weird, and that's something like a lot of people. It's really hard to explain.
I can imagine. Well, it's just kind of like being on the water all day without sunglasses. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you come in and then like when you walk inside, everything seems like I feel like I see
dark.
dots sometimes. Yeah, it's dark
Yeah,
or like I see. I don't know. That's why I can't fish. I can no longer fish without sunglasses. If not, I'm gonna have a headache, a banging headache the
yeah,
rest of the day. So,
yeah. I'm the same
but
way.
but let's talk about 2021 and how your season went and some things that what I want to know too before we while we're talking about this is some things that you look back that if one little simple thing would have been different how the rest of your year would have went. Let's get to that first. Was there anything that happened in 2021 that could have been a certain fish or anything? You know what I mean? Like, was there anything that if one little minute detail was different, your whole season would have been totally changed?
Yeah. The first one that comes to mind, I'm sure there's like anything, there's probably a few here and there, but the first one that comes to mind is the day 2 and day 3 of the TOC. Um, Day 3, I actually had a camera boat on me, and I had two really good fish come off. One of them would probably been the one of the bigger fish I caught that weekend. And day 2, I had like a 12 3/4 inch fish limit, and maybe even a 13 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And had another really good one come off. It short striked the jackhammer. I got a really good look at it. I mean, I could reach down and touched it. Its tail almost smacked the boat when it went out, and it was right at the end of the day. And I was like, man, I mean, if that's a 17-inch fish, that calls me 4 1/4 inches, and then we're cooking with peanut oil at that point, and that could be a big difference. I mean, as far as the rest of the year goes, I can't think of any too much that really stick out. There were some fish I had at Susquehanna that were good quality fish, but I also got pretty lucky and caught a good fish really late in the day. And I mean, even day 3 of TOC, I caught a 20, which was I think the biggest fish I caught at Fall the whole weekend. Literally with like 40 seconds left when I took the picture. So it's very, very hard for me to actually complain about not getting a fish for the way the year went.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody loses fish, and everybody can, a fish here and there. But the only one I could really say, man, that would have made a really big difference was the fish on day 2 of the TOC. I mean, I had 70 inches.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's always great. I know, like, just some of the stuff that I've always fished, like I've gone back and looked and been like, if I would have lost that one big fish, or like, you get one wrapped up in a brush pile, and sometimes you're like, screw it, break it off or whatever, but there's times where you really worked with them and got them out, and you're like, man, if I would have never got that fish, I'd have never won that event, or I'd have never placed in this position, which would never put me. That's what I always tell people, like, we're going to talk about consistency tonight. And as we're telling your story for 2021, is how important consistency is, and like how things have to go right. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that you can control. And, when I was talking in part 1 of this show was, we've done this show before with other guests with consistency, and a lot of comments we get was like, all you gotta do is catch fish all the time. That's true, but there's a lot of things that go in that's involved with being consistent other than just catching the fish. It's having your boat organized, it's having this tackle right, it's having a lot of preparation off the water that makes this moment right. So but looking back at kind of 2021, let's kind of get into your first event. You're having some really good events, but let's kind of talk about that. And how much homework did you do going into this season, or was it just kind of one of them things? I mean, I've had Ryan Lambert on before, and he's talked about, man, I didn't pre-fish for this thing. I just showed up with a brown bag of tackle, and and I did good.
I don't typically pre-fish a whole lot. I mean, Seminole, I basically just rolled up the day before and looked at some things that I had a good tournament at Seminole. And I was like, you know what? The conditions are very similar. It's the same time of year. I'm just going to go try to do the same thing. And on day 1, I caught one fish by about 10 o'clock doing what I did the year before. And there were some friends of mine that I was staying with that had more bites in practice doing some different things. So I actually went from, Seminole's kind of shaped like a W, for lack of better. And I went from one side to the other, drove all the way across the lake, and put in and covered water, and did that the last 2 days, and really helped myself out covering water with a spinnerbait, because the year before I'd basically just fished those flooded reeds with a big worm, which I'm not the best big worm fisherman ever, but at times that's what you got to do, throw a speed worm or whatever else. And it just I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't getting any bites the year before, big bites, and then when I was getting bites this year down there, they weren't big. The fish I'd caught was like a 15, and I had one more come off that wasn't a very good fish. So I realized, as quick as I reasonably could, that I was going to have to make a change. And I basically did what I was comfortable with, and I went to the other side and tried to get on some more current and basically throw a spinnerbait. And I didn't have a great limit on day one. Day two, I heard of some fish or some guys catching fish on the far. Basically, you put it at the boundary and go as far up as you could. And I was going past that and in all these little areas where there were eddies from all that current where everything was kind of flooded. I was throwing one of my spinner baits I make, and literally the first place I pulled up to, it was like 4 miles first thing on day two, and I caught like a 19 or 20. I think it was a really good fish. And my first 3 fish that day were, like upper 50s. I think I had like fish. And I was like, all right, this is great. I just got to keep doing this. And then I ran out of those little occurrences where those fish were at. And I basically went back through, fished everything I had fished already. And I can't remember if I moved again or not, but a lot of it is, from year one to year two. Even Seminole the year before, I think I only had 9 fish in 2 days. And if I remember correctly, I don't think I had a 10 fish limit the year before up until TOC. I don't think, I was 1 fish short at every tournament. If you want to talk about, wanting to have another fish in every event, every single event I fished in 2020, I could have been like, man, one more fish here. And I ended up finishing second at TOC and third in Angler of the Year last year, and only posted, I think, 1 limit the entire year.
Wow.
So I went into 2021 with, I'm going to go from there.
Yeah.
And that's really all I did. Seminole started off good. Watts Bar, man, if y'all know how much I fish Watts Bar, especially when it's cold and that weather that we had for Watts Bar,
it was brutal.
The colder it got, the honestly, the cockier I got for that tournament. I was freaking pumped. I was like, man, I hope it's so freaking cold people got to bust ice in their kayaks to get out here. Was my thoughts, because I've dropped some 90-inch days on that lake when it's been like 8 degrees. And I've showed friends that have come up from Chattanooga and fished with me, and we've wrecked them as a group. I was ready for that. I didn't take any time off work. I worked Monday through Friday. I'd drive down there, look around, see where guys were fishing, and I was like, there's some guys fishing that area, but I think I fish it differently. And the morning of another local kayak trail, fish without the delay. And I sat there drinking Dunkin' Donuts coffee at that boat ramp and sat out there and watched 6 or 7 guys from another trail just sit there and, wreck fish. I think they caught like 12 or 15 fish off that spot, including like a 21.5-inch smallmouth or something like that. And I was like, all right, this is tough. And I just kept thinking to myself, I just kept thinking to myself, at least there's fish here. At least there's fish here. It's cold as it is. At least there's fish here. And I caught 2 fish like the first 30 minutes or something like that, and was like, they're small, but a limit's going to go a long way. And then it was done. There was nothing I could do at that after that, and that was a tough pill to swallow. But I just blamed it on the weather and said, it's just not the right time. Because that was really the event that I had the most confidence in when the schedule came out.
Yeah. Now,
and
go ahead.
Knowing even the weather was going to be like that, not at any given point did I think that wasn't going to be my best finish of the season until literally on Sunday at 3:00, and I still hadn't posted any more than 2 fish. And I couldn't have imagined that was going to go that way, even with the weather. That's just one of those things.
Yeah. And it's tough when you have those lakes that, you're going to be confident in. When I've looked back at certain lakes and when I did bass boat tournaments, and, you're like, man, I've done good at this lake every year, or this is my lake. And you go there and you kind of cocky, you kind of arrogant, you're kind of like, I'm going to bust them. These boys better be ready.
Yeah.
Something little changes, man. You know what I mean? And you kind of get a reality check, and you're like, I need to start fishing these lakes more off of not history, or I don't know, just being open-minded more. I feel like when you get to a lake that you have so much confidence in, that sometimes you're not as open-minded as you should be. Do you feel like that sometimes?
Absolutely. there was, we used to have a lot of events on Kentucky Lake, and especially around the same time of year. And as Kentucky Lake slowly got tougher and tougher, you found guys that were struggling, and I'm 100% guilty of that. I went down before the first Hobie Open that I fished, and went down there, fished for a few days, practiced, found some fish that would school up on the same point every morning. And first morning of the Hobie, back when it was a 3-day, I literally had my 3 fish in probably the first 10 or 15 minutes. And I ended up finishing, I was in like 4th after the first day. And that was, a few years ago. I think Jay Wallen ended up winning that, or Ron or somebody. And, but I was pumped, man. I was like 19. And I was like, man, I said, this is great, man. I'm 4th place. There's a chance to qualify for Hobie Worlds. They did 1st and 2nd place at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this is gonna be great. All I got to do is go back to my spot and catch fish off the same point. And as I was going back, I was staying at the dam. The spot was on the south end of the lake, and I was driving almost 2 hours. My alternator went out of my truck. And then I realized, I was like, man, that's a whole nother story in itself. Long story short, I ended up, swapping my alternator out in the middle of the day and still catching the limit and finishing 8th place. But I realized, man, I can't put so much stock in that on that point. But as the years went by and we kept having tournaments that same time of the year there, I could go back to that same point, throw the exact same bait, and catch fish off that point. And one year we went up to that spot for a tournament. And I get out there, no pre-fishing. It's some 2-day tournament. I don't remember if it's a Hobie or what it was. And I get out there and I'm waiting. And normally there's fish blowing up the point, and I was there throwing top water for like 2 hours with not a single bite. There's no fish around. There's Asian carp everywhere. And then I realized, I was like, you know what? I should probably know better than to just drive 6 hours to Kentucky Lake just to assume there's fish here sitting on this one point. And there's that's one of those kind of humble pie things where you assume everything's going to be the same as it was year after year after year. And as far as the carp go, that's not a normal thing. But at the same time, it can be something way smaller of adjustment than just carp coming through and pushing fish out of place. It could be pressure or moon or whatever else. And I put way too much stock into that spot, and that's something I have issue with is other places. We've got a local lake called Melton Hill, and I won a tournament there the first time we had a local kayak tournament. And then like the two or three tournaments after that, as years went by, we were going back over there. I kept trying to do the same thing, and it just didn't work. I was lucky to catch fish at all, let alone have a chance to win the tournament. And this year, I specifically took a day off work on a Friday and got a map and literally looked at the lake as if I was looking at a new lake. Because that's what I think I do as good as anybody else that I've met, is being able to look at a body of water and go, okay, this looks like what I want to fish for this time of year. I don't like this. There's too many people probably going to be here. This is a community spot based on what, tournaments are there, based on how big the boat ramps are. And I had the best limit I've ever had on Melton Hill this year. And I sat in one spot and absolutely just wrecked them. I wrecked them. And I did some stuff that, I do when I travel. I didn't put in at a giant boat ramp. I found a pull off on the side of the road that I basically threw my kayak down a 45-degree clay bank with my wheels on there, and got there right at time to start fishing and put my kayak in the water. And there was a guy that pedaled up from like a mile and a half down from the next boat ramp and was like, dude, how in the world did you get here? And I was like, that's genius on my part to find somewhere that I could do that. I felt bad for the guy. He's one of my friends. All the local guys are, we all know each other, and it was like, what, this is probably a good spot if this guy's here. And I fished it a little differently and try to do some stuff that I wouldn't typically do locally, because I just assume like, oh, that's such and such lake. I've been fishing for since I was 13. I've been fishing this lake for half my life. Oh, I'm just going to go here and do this. And it's easy to get caught up in that. And I think being able to look at places, without history, kind of be able to compartmentalize that and look at it without your blinders on, and be able to kind of dissect a body as if you've never fished it or fished it like it's the first time again.
Yeah.
Is something that is very underrated. I think being able to just look at things, I can't think of the word I'm thinking of, but be able to look at something with freshness and newness is a big deal to me.
Yeah. And that's like, you know, when I was in the bass boat world and then switched over to the kayaking side, started putting in these ramps, I realized that, you know, I'm blasting off. I'm going by some really good fishing stuff. And that's the good thing about kayaking, I think makes you such a better angler. Even returning back to the bass boat side, you know, I'll still take a bass boat out and I feel like I catch more fish now because I've learned to break bodies of water down better, you know, in
Yeah.
a kayak. And like you say, like it's always good, you know, on Smith Mountain Lake, I got certain ramps that I love to put in. I always put in at, and I fish if I just need to get out for a couple hours and fish. But there's times I'll just put in a whole different ramp just to learn something new and break something else down. And I think it still hones you. It helps you sharpen your skills a little more. You know, it's like you say, it's like fishing a whole nother lake sometimes. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's why guys like for, you know, like for the Hobie series or Bass or KBF, guys that go to these new lakes sometimes do really well because granted they're good back at home, but like putting them on a new body of water, you don't have that home field advantage. You're open minded. You go fish whatever you think looks good. You know what I mean? What
Yeah.
you would fish back home, but you find it on a different body of water. So, but yeah, I
I'm
can
sure
see
Smith
that.
Mountain Lake, it's the same way it is anywhere where, you know, I fish to have a bass boat. I still have a bass boat in the garage here. Um, there's a lot of really, really good local guys that will catch fish year round that have 150 spots marked on their waypoints.
Mhm.
And based on what time of year it is, they're going to be like, okay, I need to hit spots 1 through 25 today because there's current moving and it's whatever time of year, and they'll just go hit these 25 spots on milk runs. I mean, I've been with guys that do it, and you'll pull up to somewhere on a marina, and they'll be like, "Yeah, there's one tree sunk in this specific dock and slip. You basically throw down there and flip into it a couple times, and if you don't get a bite, we'll just go to this next spot in the back of the creek where we've got 5 or 6 toilets set out or whatever it be." And they know exactly, hey, I pull up on it, I look at it this direction, I can cast as hard as I can, and I crank down 10 times, and that's when I know I hit it. And to me, that's unbelievable. That's awesome. You know, it's incredible to be with guys that have things dialed in like that, especially when you're catching them. But to me, that's not, that doesn't get me excited. That doesn't make me want to go fishing.
Yeah.
If somebody's like, "Hey, we're probably going to go win a tournament," you know, I'll show up and I'll go catch some fish because it's cool to me. I mean, I like catching fish, but
Yeah.
if you say, "Hey, somebody saw a 5 pounder when they were trout fishing or bluegill fishing or whatever else on this lake that nobody fishes, do you want to go look at it?" That's what gets me excited.
Yeah.
That's the places that aren't fished nearly as much, the places that get overlooked, the rivers, the big ponds, the backwaters, the random overlooked lakes. That's what gets me excited. I'm a pattern fisherman. I read all the guys' books, the older books, that Rowan Martin has, and Ike and Ellie has. You know, I've spent a lot of time reading and researching and things like that. I kind of keep that in the back of my mind. So when I show up somewhere, it's I can't remember who it was, but they basically broke the lake down in thirds. And they're
Mhm.
like, you're either going to fish the upper end of the lake, the middle part of the lake, or the lower part of the lake. And as I've paid attention to that over the last few years traveling, and everybody that knows me knows how I fish, they know I like current. And a lot of times, you know, your biggest, most popular ramps are always down on the low end of the lake. That's the most beat up area. That's where most of the fish are offshore. I don't like fishing offshore. I like fishing shallow. So 9 times out of 10, when I go somewhere, I take a third of the lake and just it doesn't exist down
Yeah.
by the dam. Most of the time, I don't want anything to do with it. Now, obviously, there are certain instances that are different. As we travel and do different things. I like grass, but I'm not a big frog guy. I'm not a great puncher. I know how to do it. If they say, hey, the bite's a punch and bite, I'll do it for a week and I'll figure out how to do it, and we'll figure it out for a tournament. But if I had my preferences, I'm not going to go get side by side with some of these guys from South Carolina and Florida, because I know what my strengths are.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if there's grass on the whole upper end of the lake and you get further down south and it looks like what our lakes are in the middle of the lake, like Loudon and Tellico, then that's where I'll go, because that's where I feel comfortable. And I think having uh, quite a few baits that you're comfortable with, I like to flip most of the time, like a rage bug, D-bomb, something like that, like a craw. And then I'll throw a jackhammer and a spinnerbait, and I'll throw any type of top water you put on my rod. That's what I like to do. And I think if you get a few of those things that you're confident with and you like doing, and you find somewhere that you can kind of make comparisons with your home lake versus where you're traveling to, you're going to be a lot more consistent, because you can break water down a lot quicker.
Yeah. And, I think we kind of, we're talking about you got your baits. You like your reaction bait. That's kind of what your deal is. You cover water. That's how you fish. And that's what we've, over the years, we've talked about. We had, elite pros and FLW pros, and all of them say the same thing. They all have confidence baits, like Gerald Swin always talking about on jigs. You always got black and blue. You always got brown or green pumpkin, whichever you want to call it. And you always got watermelon. Nowhere, it does not matter where you go in the country, you'll catch fish off those colors.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that a lot of these guys that are really successful, that have a lot of great success in tournaments and are consistent, fish kind of simple. You know what I mean? Like we had Drew Gregory on, we've had Ryan Lambert on. Them guys both, I was just really impressed at how simple they are. They don't have a lot. They don't bring a lot of crazy stuff. And if you got a jackhammer, it seems like right now these guys, like if you got a jackhammer or spinnerbait or some kind of top water, you're going to catch them. You know what I mean? They're going to catch them, shall I say. But you got guys like Casey Reed that can go anywhere and catch them on a shaky head all day long. And I like throwing a shaky head, but I would go nuts if I cast that every single tournament to make a check off of it.
I would probably put $1,000 in the fact that I haven't tied a shaky head on in 2021. Not one time.
Yeah.
If I got 2 spinning rods, period, and one of them has a fluke on it at all times, year round, or a caffeine shad, and the other one, in certain instances, I will admit to having a Ned rig tied on.
Oh gosh.
And I don't like to tell people that, but I have caught some good fish on a Ned rig, as much as I hate to say that. But that's my 2 spinning rods that are both cheap rods, probably $50 or $60 rods with $50 or $60 reels, just to say I have it. Now, I've got a lot of fish on a fluke, because I use it as a follow-up bait pretty much everywhere I go.
Yeah, it's hard to go wrong with the fluke. I always have one tied on as well, especially like they're always feeding on bait fish. No matter where you go, they're feeding on some kind of fish. You know what I mean? There's days where, you can catch more on a jig because they're feeding on crawfish really heavy in that area, but they're always going to chase some kind of bait fish, So a fluke, like you say, is a great follow-up bait. It's got the slow presentation. You can get it real erratic. You can do whatever with that bait and get bites. But I always have a drop shot tied on. Smith Mountain Lake is a drop shot lake. There's days where other things work really great, but I feel like every time I go on Smith, if I at least have a drop shot on, I'm going to catch something, So, but like you guys, like I say, I know anywhere I go in the country, I can throw a drop shot and probably catch something. It might not always be big, but you're going to catch something. So, and it's also a bait to have, like a panic bait. If you've got 2 or 3 and you need a couple more, you might be able to squeeze out a little bit of a limit with something like that. But being consistent in your tackle, how much tackle do you actually bring out on the boat? Because if you're staying consistent, you know what you like to throw. Do you bring a lot of stuff, or are you just kind of, I know this is what I'm gonna throw, that's it?
Um, I have a lot of tackle. Now, a lot of it's not very different. I throw the same stuff pretty much all the time. My friends give me a hard time because I do keep my boat's very heavy because I have a lot of items in the kayak. Now, they're not different most of the time unless they're a spinnerbait. I've told a bunch of people I probably have 70 spinnerbaits in the boat, and there's probably 30 different colors, which most of the time I just throw two or three. But I mean, for the most part, it's um, black and blue and green pumpkin and a lot of things. Um, I throw like three colors of jackhammers, and um, I've got a lot of crankbaits, even though that they're mostly all the same few colors. I think it matters quite a bit with crankbaits as far as flat sides or round sides and things like that, or they rattle or how deep they go. I think that can be, if you want to get particular about something, I think that's something to be particular about. I'm a big Rapala junkie. I've got more, discontinued Rapala baits and most people probably have. A lot of guys know Kevin Baxter. I battle with him on Facebook groups and eBay's with trying to get old discontinued Rapalas all the time. And I think it's like you said, it's something that you have to have confidence in. And there's a few crankbaits that I have confidence in. But there's you can throw about any crankbait and catch a fish. I mean, they wouldn't make them if they didn't catch fish at some point in time. And I've seen my buddy Eric. I think he's commented on here a time or two already. I've seen him throw some of the most outlandish crap I've ever seen in my life. And absolutely freaking mop the floor with me, behind me, in front of me, whatsoever. And that's that really brings to light how much a fish will eat, and how a lot of guys will. I used to be really, really bad and really particular when I was fishing in a bass boat about how many strands of such and such were in my jig, or I would make sure it was fine glitter and not thick glitter that was sprinkled on my crankbaits. And at a certain point, would that matter? I don't know. It's a confidence thing as much as anything, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, I like red crankbaits and something that's as realistic as possible for shad. Other than that, I don't care.
Yeah.
I've got my colors. I'm always partial to something with purple. I think purple and chartreuse together is one of the greatest colors ever invented. But for the most part, a shad color is a shad color, and a craw color is a craw color. And other than that, I don't think about it too much.
You was talking about strands of jigs. I know guys that were like that, and I was always particular about certain black and blue jigs. Like I had some that I like my skirt to be completely black but have blue flake in it. I didn't want
Yeah,
a black with black strands and blue strands. I didn't want that. I wanted black skirt with blue flake in it. And um, fishermen are funny, man. Like, I've seen guys that are get really, really picky about how many. Like, we used to make jigs years ago, and we've had guys that only, hey, I only want two strands of orange in this. I don't want three. I don't want four. I
yeah,
only want two strand. So like,
yeah.
I
You
get
can
it.
probably see I've got molds up here. I've made quite a bit. I used to have a little tackle company that I used to do, and I've sold a bunch of jigs, and guys asking for two strands of a particular color or three strands or whatever it is. That was kind of when I was like, you know what, that's ignorant. And that was when I started. I was like, you know what, I make all this stuff so I could do it, and now I make it out of convenience and enjoyment for hobbies and things. I've got some spinner baits I've been piddling here with, and um, man, at some point you got to draw a line somewhere, and as you start drawing the line, and setting it further and further back from crazy, and you start moving it back, you start going, well, I don't know why that matters. I
Yeah.
don't know why that matters either. And then before too long, you're going, man, I'm catching fish regardless, and I'm probably catching more fish now than when I was worried about it.
Yep.
and it's very, very freeing when you can go, you know what, the only difference in a, half the time the only difference in a Walmart white and chartreuse spinnerbait and a really, really nice, $20 spinnerbait from Japan is A, confidence in it because you've been talked into it, and B, how long the thing's going to hold up while you're actually catching fish.
Yeah.
And other than that, it's one of those things
That's exactly right.
that we just look too much into. I'll tell you, I remember the exact moment when I started realizing that I looked into things too much. Was I was buying. Somebody mentioned up here. I think it was Thomason. My bull shad meltdowns. Bull shad meltdowns are when you take a bull shad and you get it custom painted, and yeah, bull shad meltdowns are when you pay 50, 60, $70 for a bull shad or bull glide or whatever else. You pay another, X amount of dollars to have it custom painted, and then you hang it up and you break it off. And then you lose your mind and break whatever rod's in your hand and throw it in the water. And I'll never forget that conversation with Mike Buka was, hey man, I just bought a bull shad. I want it custom painted a little bit more realistic. And he said, why? And I was like, well, I want something that, for X or B, or I've got a bunch of bull shads. So I was like, man, I want one for dirty water. Should I get it chartreuse or should I get it blue or should I get it fire tiger or whatever else crazy thing was on my mind at the time? And he was like, he had a really simple answer that he basically took only 2 or 3 colors, period. You have your brights, your darks, and whatever color you're actually trying to mimic that's realistic. And he said, any more than 3 colors, you're just doing it for yourself. And I was like, well, my freaking goodness, if that ain't the freaking smartest thing I've ever heard in my life. And ever since then, I'm a 3-color guy, whether it's jigs or crankbaits or whatever else. As far as I'm concerned, jigs, it's either, you're throwing a swim jig to look like a shad. So, you got your shad colors. You got something that's black and blue because black and blue always works. Or you got some sort of green or brown or green pumpkin, I think half of them are all the same. And, there's your natural crawls. And, crankbaits, I like to throw red because red always works. And your shad colors. And I just, for whatever reason, that really, really clicked with me because I'm a very just common sense oriented individual.
Mm-hmm.
And that clicked with me. That made sense to me. And ever since then, I buy stuff in bulk. And when I throw stuff that I like, I make myself keep it simple. And that's the only way I can imagine doing this, because if I was still doing it the way I was, no one would have any idea who I was because I would not having the success that I have.
Yeah. Well, you get too complicated, then you don't know what to bring. And then half the time you leave stuff in the truck that you probably should have brought. And yeah, that's what we've been working on the last about 2 or 3 years now since we've come out of the bass boats, is simplifying our tackle now. Because you can't bring everything. So you got to simplify it and bring what works. And like, you get too crazy, then all of a sudden you got, like you say, 27 different jig colors and all that. So, but Chris, you said we had some questions come through. We'll start getting some of them.
Answered one of them.
Okay.
We got this one here from Tony. How many days a year do you get to fish? And does it bother you that a lot of your competitors get to spend a week more pre-fishing?
So I work Monday through Friday, and I get off at 3:00 most days, and I fish a lot of Thursday nights. We've got a Thursday night tournament that we fish about 20 tournaments a year between April and whatever 21 weeks after that is. So I basically fish Thursdays and Saturdays unless I'm fishing a tournament. So pretty much, and as far as tournaments go, I probably fish somewhere between 40 and 45 tournaments a year. And I probably only spend 55 to 60 days on the water a year.
So basically, when you're fishing a tournament.
I'm fishing a tournament. If I'm not fishing a tournament, well, I'll say I probably have more days on the water than that, because I'll take I'll take all of my vacation days in the year, and I'll even call in sick to go fishing a few times. So I'd say the number's probably realistically probably between 70 and 80. So I'd say it's a 50-50 of whether or not I'm in a tournament, or a lot of times I'm practicing for tournaments, and the mindset's pretty much the same. There's not a whole lot of days that I'm on the water in a year that I'm not either A, practicing for a tournament, or B, in a tournament. And most of those days are me trying to catch something absolutely giant and trying to do the opposite of what I'm in a tournament. We like floating the river, and we basically, just go throw, bull shads and big top waters and things like that, where, we're just having fun. If I'm not practicing for a tournament or in a tournament, then I'm just, very, very chill. Now, a lot of the times when I'm actually practicing for a tournament, I do less fishing than I do if I'm fun fishing. A lot of that is putting eyeballs on stuff. Lot of miles in my truck, driving, looking, trying to find access, almost getting my truck stuck, backing my trailer somewhere that I shouldn't back my trailer down, God knows where, steep cliffs, and, getting turned around on forestry roads. And, some of these guys have been with me when I drive and back a trailer for a living, I like to tell people. So, a kayak trailer's nothing. So I can get in and out of places. So I can be a little adventurous with going some places, and when we're out driving around and looking for places, because I've gotten in and out of some swirly places. But it's one of those things where a lot of people, as far as the second half of that question Tony asked, was does it bother me? Honestly, no. A lot of the people that we fish with don't have enough common sense to stay off their fish. So if they want to go catch all their fish, more power to them. I heard a guy at Kentucky Lake a few years ago when we were doing the Hobie series. Verbatim, he said, I don't know where all my fish went. I caught 40 fish yesterday in practice there.
Yeah.
And ever since then, every time I look at that guy, I go, man, this guy cracks me up every time I look at him. Because I sit there and think about that time he was mad because he couldn't figure out where his 40 fish went he caught in practice. And yeah, it's one of those things. I don't do a whole lot of catching fish in practice, and that's why I think I have yin yang days. Like at Hartwell this year, which is by far my worst tournament. I didn't really catch any fish in practice, and I think it was like the next one after Hobie, I think, or the Watts Bar, where I was like, man, I got to have a good finish. This is the last close one here. I got to swing for the fences. And I went out and bombed, because I basically went and threw top waters and big glide baits for 2 days. And because I just thought, you hear all that, quote unquote doc talk in practice, and guys you're staying with where, oh yeah, everybody and their brother's catching them. It's Hartwell. It's, everybody's catching, spotted bass or whatever else. I think Hartwell's a spotted bass fishery.
Yeah.
And, everybody's like, oh yeah, it's a spotted bass fisher. Everybody and their brothers catching fish. And it was the same way at Norman. I did the exact same thing. I got in my head that, oh, you've got to catch big fish because everybody and their brother's going to catch fish down here. And there's something about me in North Carolina that just doesn't jive in general. And I went and I just tried to throw big baits, and it didn't work. And I learned, you have to learn as much from tournaments like that where you don't do worth a crap as you do when you're, doing crazy things and it works.
Yeah.
Eventually I'm going to go to North Carolina and I'm going to catch some fish, because I'm going to quit doing stupid stuff and trying to win a tournament when I don't think I've ever even finished in the top half of a field within the state of North Carolina, or South Carolina for that matter. But eventually it's going to work out, and I'm, going to go and go somewhere that I feel comfortable at. And I'm going to look at it and break it down the way I break down a lot of the places here. And I look at it objectively without, bringing all this other stuff in from outside, and just fish whatever I want to fish. But it would be nice to spend a little bit more time on the water.
Yeah. And Chris, you said we got any more questions?
No, not right now.
Okay. speaking of that, and talking about doing your research and you're gonna throw what you want to throw. Let's talk a little bit about getting into 2022, and we got quite a few good lakes on the schedule for the Hobie B.O.S events, and but are you? I know these tournaments are close together. Do you plan to fish the Lake Fork event for BASS and then also fish Toledo Bend, or are you just gonna pick one of those and go, or what's your plans for that?
Yeah, there's four of us that are going to travel together. Me, Eric Thomason, who shout out to the Road Dog. He made the top 25 this year. That's something he's been wanting to do. He slid just out of it a couple years ago at 26, and he was pumped to get in there in I think 24th this year. But him, Daniel Lyons, who we all call Pro Neighbor because he lives like 2 houses down from Eric, and they always travel together. And Matt, who roomed with me and Eric at TOC, we're all going to travel together and fish Fork and Toledo Bend back to back. And I'm interested to see what Fork is going to be like, because when we were there last year, I practiced for Fork as much as any tournament that I practiced for, period, because we had just left Broken Bow. We actually left Broken Bow and drove straight to Fork. And I pre-fished Fork that whole week, and I did not catch a single scoreable bass in practice at Fork.
Oh, wow.
And even during the tournament, I went until noon before I caught a fish at Fork. I hate Fork. I don't want to go. But that was we always try to do like a Western swing or whatever with a few of us, and try to do something where we've got as much of a vacation as is a tournament.
Yeah.
And those were the only 2 tournaments that were back to back out in that general area this year. And I hope Fork is down, because I hated it when it was up. So that's I'm looking forward to get on Toledo Bend, because everybody knows Toledo Bend is one of those places like Fork or Rayburn or Okeechobee, even, where you grow up hearing places like that, and you see a lot of content on TV comes from those places. So Toledo Bend's going to be a bucket list fishery, and Fork is this year at Fork's going to determine whether I come back to that place ever again or not. So if I fish it when it's down and it's like fishing for fish in a barrel and I still struggle, then I'm just not going to come back. How's that?
Yeah. That's what I'm worried about, because we were really excited about going to Fork and then fishing Toledo Bend, and we're still up in air about Fork. We're not sure yet with business and all that and how busy we're going to be, but also looking at how low it's going to be, and they're talking about only a few boat ramps going to be open. I'm kind of like, that'll be fun, but could be
I'm
tough.
pumped. That's my kind of tournament, man. The more weird stuff happens, the more I get excited.
Yeah, and like my anxiety kills me if I got like a bunch of people around me. I don't mind fishing around some people.
Oh yeah.
But when all of a sudden you got like a pile of people around you, and like I'm
Yeah.
trying to like, what are they doing? Let me try to do something different than what they're doing. But then all of a sudden you look around, you're like, God darn, everybody's fishing something different. I don't even know what to do anymore. Like, So
yeah, that was one of my problems with Fort this past year, is that there was 200 something people there, and it seemed like everybody was right on top of each other. So I don't know how that's going to be with lowered water. I'll also this year, fun fact, which most guys don't believe me when I tell them, because I've been so harsh on them over the last few years, was I'm actually getting a troll motor put on my kayak right now. Getting join the powered revolution, and I've got a Newport getting rigged up on my pro angler right now. So maybe that'll be a better way to look at it and be able to drive around, or troll around and look at things and maybe break down the water a little better, because I found some stuff that suited me, quote unquote, more like home and things I like to do at the end of the day last year after I stole Eric's truck. We rode down there together, and we took his vehicle, and I told him in the middle of the day, I was like, dude, you're wrecking them, good job, but I'm taking your truck keys and I'm loading my kayak up and I'm going somewhere else because I hate it here. So hopefully I can get something that looks what I'm comfortable with and feels like I can break down.
Yeah. Now let's kind of get on like going on Toledo Bend, and and also kind of going into getting ready for 2022. How do you go about do you do a lot of map research prior? I mean, do you take each lake and kind of look at it on the map and like, I know we was talking about you breaking it down in quarters and, but do you do a lot of like Google and paper map, or you just kind of look at some ramps and go from there? And then when you get down, you drive around.
It's a lot of the biggest thing's driving around because I'll spend a lot of time on Google Maps and Apple Maps because you'll see stuff at different times of the year based on the two different maps, whether it's watercolor or things like that. And having a good understanding of what you're wanting to find on a map before you ever get there is ideal. There's been a lot of places I've rolled up to, and Eufaula is a good example where I wanted to fish somewhere and access a spot that ended up being private, even though it looked public on a map. And that last fish I caught on the last day of the TOC, it was right in front of a spot that I had marked, literally directly across from what I thought was an access area that ended up being private property because it looked really good on a map, but it was like 4 miles from an official boat ramp or even somewhere I could even access.
Wow.
And, things like that, knowing what you're wanting to look for based on the time of the year and how far it is away from other things is a big deal. And a lot of it's putting in the time when you get down there. Like I've looked more at Fork, even though I hate it, than I have at Toledo Bend. I'll be honest with you. I've actually not looked at Toledo Bend hardly at all. Because I just haven't had time, and I've looked at other tournaments that have kind of piqued my interest a little bit more. But I've looked at Toledo Bend enough to mark all the public boat ramps.
That's what I've been
doing. Other than that, I really haven't looked a whole lot because I've got all my quote unquote basic starting areas. And that is as important to me as anything because I can look at all that and be like, okay, here's a big stretch where there's not as many access areas, public anyway. Now, is there a private one here, or is this somewhere no one's going to go to? Because if there's fish there, as good as a lot of our anglers are, Drew Gregory's that way, Christine's that way. We've got a lot of guys that are, and girls too, that don't mind dragging their kayak on their cart somewhere to get in somewhere. Cody Milton's that way too. They'll put in where they feel that there's fish. And if you can find a balance of where there's not a whole lot of people or there's not a whole lot of side access or you get a side access that no one finds, that's a big of a deal as anything, especially when you've got 2 back-to-back tournaments that are that close, because just like we talked about, there's going to be quite a few people that go straight from Fort to Toledo Bend. And there's going to be a lot of people that are just going to Toledo Bend because it's the Hobie. And there's going to be a bunch of people that beat Toledo Bend up that week. And there's going to be a day, whether it's the day before the event or 2 days before the event, where I'll just drive around and see where everyone's at and see what's being beat up and just eyeball things. And it's one of those things where you can learn as much by seeing where people aren't as you'll see where their people are. Now, if I drive by somewhere and everyone's offshore, that doesn't bother me a bit because I'm not going offshore. If I can't stick my freaking rod in the water and touch the bottom, then I ain't catching fish there at Fork, especially. If there's anywhere that's a shallow fishery like that, especially spring, February in Texas, March, Santee Cooper, I'm not going to fish anywhere deeper than I can stick my rod in the water. Unless we get a crazy cold front or something like that at Fork, I'll plan on fishing shallow. Now, there's a good chance I'm going to go and crank a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And if we ever happen to go back to Fork, I promise you there's going to be a good bit of if I have time at Fork, whether it's a good tournament or bad, maybe even the Monday afterwards, I'll go out there and I'll look for places that look like home, and I'll find some rock that'll be, roughly 6 foot deep. I don't know how shallow or how low the lake's going to be at the time, but I'll find something that I can be like, hey, if we ever come back to Fork in February again and the lake's up, I'm going to have a spot in mind that I'm going to go to because of the secrets that lake's going to give up because the water's down.
Oh, yeah. I've seen pictures that people have posted that live around that lake here lately. Like, when the water's
it's
up,
incredible, isn't it?
Oh man, it's like,
incredible.
and you look across there and you don't even see no trees. And then when the lake's really low, you're like, holy moly, look at everything.
Yeah. It's impressive, man. That's a daunting place. We don't have a lot of standing timber here. And the lake that we have some standing timber on, it's terrible. The lake is garbage. The lake is hot garbage.
Yeah.
And so I am not a standing timber is not my confidence area. Now, if I can go somewhere, like we went to the TOC before last, actually 2 TOCs ago, the original TOC for Hobie was in Arkansas at Lake Ouachita. And that had as much standing timber as I had ever seen at the time. And in that fall bite for the TOC, we actually just cranked standing timber. Well, in practice, I caught him cranking standing timber. And then during the tournament, I actually caught him on a spinnerbait around the tops of it, around the shallower pieces. And man, that was as fulfilling as anything, because I'm not a standing timber fisherman. That's not something I look for. Now, when we went to Fork and there's standing timber everywhere again, and they're like, yeah, there's even more standing timber under the water. We looked for places that was like, me personally, I had to get away from it. I was like, there's so much of this crap. I don't know what to do with it. It's like walking out in a forest. And it's like, okay, you got to find the difference in these trees and that trees. It's like going to Okeechobee or somewhere like that has an unbelievable amount of grass.
Yeah.
I'm not a grass fisherman. I can barely differentiate the types of grass. So when they're like, oh, you just have to find these different areas of grass, based on the bottom content, they're going to grow there, whatever else, that's not my game. That's one reason that, I've never really tried to find a reason to go to places like the St. John's and stuff like that. I need to learn those things, but that's not in my confidence repertoire yet.
Yeah. Grass is definitely a different monster. I know we get a little bit around here, but if I get an abundance of it, I get really frustrated. Like, trying to work certain dates and all that through there. And, like we went down to Chickamauga, and that was the first time I've actually been on something where I actually had some good frog bites. Like I don't do that well with a frog around here for some reason, but I got other guys that do, but I don't. And so I went down to Chickamauga, and I'm like, man, this is going to be killer with a frog bite. And I just could not get them to bite. I couldn't. Well, they hit it, but I could never catch them.
Yeah,
and,
those Chickamauga fish are smart.
Oh yeah.
I'm notoriously on the record for saying I hate Chickamauga, and it's not because I think it's a bad lake. I think it's the best place to catch a 10-pounder, by far this far north. I mean, there's a lot of 10-pounders in it. It's a good fishery if you want to catch an absolute giant, but I think that lake lacks a lot of medium-sized fish. And I think that there's so many people that fish there that those fish get really accustomed to doing normal things.
Yeah.
Those fish see as many frogs as arguably any lake in the country except maybe Guntersville.
Yeah.
And it's insane. It really is the number of people that fish there. And I don't like being around that many people, especially on a lake that fishes so tough a lot of times.
Yeah, it was definitely different because, like, the guy that won it, Tyler Cole, when he won that event, he was doing the same thing I was doing, different area, but like all the fish that were coming up for the frog were like all behind it, like they were just kind of like just slowly rolling out. It wasn't like you see on Bassmasters where they just totally decimate a frog. It was like, what? I don't even know how to adjust for this. Like, I don't know what to do. So finally, I just got rid of it and started back throwing like a small little Kitech swim bait because that's all I could catch them on in practice. So. But yeah, that grass is not my strength. I don't mind standing timber a little bit just because we fish that a lot around here. But like say getting like a lake like Toledo Bend. I mean, if you look at that lake, and I did the same thing you did, I went through and marked all the public boat ramps that I could find. But that lake is so huge, like it's
massive.
humongous. And to even break it, like you go on the Texas side and you're like, just looking at the bridge getting across that lake, it's huge. It's long. And I'm trying to break down spots where I like, okay, I want to fish this, but how much time I'm going to fish by the time we got to get back to check in and all that stuff, So it's hard to break that lake down. That's a huge lake, and a lot of the pictures that you look at right now, the lake is really low, which is great because you can find a lot of structure that way.
Yeah.
But I'm also kind of like, they're going through a drought too, you know, and I'm kind of like, well, man, what's going to be good when we get there? You know, is the lake going to be up,
Yeah.
low? So like, it is kind of tough to break that lake down. But I'm kind of like you. I'm just trying to find stuff that I like here with rock and clumps of stumps and, you know, all that stuff, which that seems like that lake there's got a pile load of stumps and timber in it as well.
And I'm all for you know, showing up to a specific boat ramp, whatever it is, it's, you know, pull off, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of places, and I swear, I've talked to other guys, and one of the biggest things for me is if I pull up somewhere, a spot's got mojo.
Mm.
I swear, when I pulled up to the spot at Seminole the first year, I got there and it was like, I'm about to wreck them. And
Yeah.
I didn't even catch a fish there. I got there and I was like, this is right. I don't know how to explain it, but this is right. And when I went back the next year, I put in there and I kind of looked around. The water's about the same level. The water's the same color. And I was like, this ain't right. And I gave it time. I didn't want to make any brash decisions. But when I wasn't getting bites, and even when I did get bites, the fish were smaller, I skedaddled. I
Yeah.
was like, man, I said, this doesn't feel right. And having a confidence in a spot, whether you've been there or not, is just as important as having confidence in the baits that you're throwing. Because when everything lines up, you can be really consistent. And when you get on a roll, I mean, if you got, good boat mojo, good spot mojo, good bait mojo, and everything is flowing good, and you're not going, man, I don't want to use this reel because it's not got enough line on it, or I don't want to use this particular rod because it's got a bent eye,
Yeah.
or it's always terrible to get out there on the water and be like, man, I forgot my handle is loose, or my fin's a little loose, or whatever it might be, or man, the last time I went out, I forgot I had a bad spot in this line. It's little things like that that can really change a whole day in a hurry. I mean, in a hurry. And one of the things that I've talked about on one of the other podcasts is kind of keeping that correct mindset. And I listen to a lot of music. Guys at work know that I've got a particular taste in music. It's a lot of Texas country. It's Turnpike Troubadours. It's Flatland Cavalry. It's all that kind of stuff. Having something that kind of keeps me in the right mindset and kind of keeps me going, keeps me without, having a quote unquote bullshit meltdown in the middle of the day. Keeping me in the right mindset is as important as anything for me. And that's between trying to keep all my equipment good. It doesn't have to be great. I don't have really super high end equipment. I've got a bunch of Curado case, just, normal reels. And, I'm not a super high end rod guy. I think having equipment that you're comfortable with is more important than the quality of it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the main thing. You can see guys, and hey, man, we're just as bad when it comes to rigging kayaks. Like, we try to have, well, that's what we do. We rig kayaks, and that's part of our business. And so we're always trying to do something new and custom and having like little gadgets and this and that. But I always tell people that, like with graphs, you can have the biggest graph, you can have the 360, you can have the Garmin. If you ain't got confidence in it or you don't know how to use this stuff, it's really not worth the money that you paid for it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm graphless. I've went graphless for the last 2 years.
Yeah. And like say, when you're fishing shallow water and that's your confidence thing, it's just like talking, we had Drew Gregory on. You don't use that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, if you fish shallow water, a lot of times it's kind of pointless because you already know what you want to fish. You know what you're going to fish.
Yeah.
And if you got something there that can actually occupy your time a little more and distract you a little more, what could your fishing be? Now, granted, it could take it to another level. You just never know. But
yeah,
I know, like with Garmin, when I put the live scope on, I was like, man, this is going to be, because I love drop shot and I love getting on brush piles and docks and drop shotting on schools of fish and stuff. but I actually started catching less fish using that thing because I feel like I was getting hung up on stuff longer because I knew they were there.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get them to bite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was hung up on stuff a lot longer, or I changed baits, and I just, instead of just, all right, well, they're not hitting you, let's go to the next one. And I'm gonna play with it more this year, but because we just got that on the Hobie, so I'm gonna play with it more this year and try to change up my ways of fishing with it and learning that aspect of the system better. But kind of like getting back to what you're saying before I get off track here is like, say, if you ain't got confidence in your baits and confidence in your spot, you're basically wasting your time, you know? So, like say, when it comes down to being consistent, like we've been talking about, it all is in confidence and everything that you bring with you on that water and all the preparation before you even put the boat in the water. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
and being consistent like you have been, you're doing what you love to do. You're doing it the only way that you know how to do. And I think that's why you're consistent. You're not all over the place. You know, if you know that you struggle down the lake, you don't go down the lake. You're going to stay up the river where you know you catch those fish. You're just going to dial that spot in.
Yeah.
And like I say, when we talked about consistency, like I said at the beginning of the show, some people are like, all you got to do is catch fish. That's how you're consistent. And like I said, like I just got out of my mouth, it's all about everything that happens before you get on the water and during on the water that help you catch more fish to be consistent. But Chris, we got any other questions, man?
No.
Well, Jordan, I don't want to hold you up too much longer, man. I know we were late getting started on this thing. It's getting
you're
late.
good. I didn't catch the last part of that. You kind of froze up there for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was basically just saying, like, when, you know, with consistency, it was, you know, practice or time off the water, getting everything straight to make sure everything is right, like you said, with your line and your lures and picking the right spot. That's what consistency is. And then just catching the fish. Because if you ain't got confidence in everything that you got on your kayak or the spot that you picked, you're not going to catch that many fish, you know?
We do have a question.
Yeah.
Kayak Catfish wants to know who was Jordan's favorite catfisherman.
It's some skinny guy that I watch on YouTube. I think his name is man, I think it's Catfish Dave is my favorite. I think, is it?
Have you heard
No,
Catfish's Dave new rap song?
I love Kayak Catfish, man. Justin's great. I've known Justin a few years. He's got an unbelievably informative channel, and he catches absolutely giant catfish out of a kayak. So
yeah,
maybe one day when I get my YouTube started, and hopefully soon, in the next week or so, I'm going to try to start uploading a video or so a week. And yeah, kayak Catfish is my favorite YouTuber in general, right behind Catfish Dave.
Yeah, me and Chris have watched them guys for years, and when I had the opportunity to meet Kayak Catfish down at Chickamauga, we were down at the lower end. And I pulled in, I seen his car and all that, and I sent a picture to Chris. I'm like, "Look who's here at the ramp, man! It's Kayak Catfish!" Like, then I seen him come on the ramp, and I had to go meet him. You know, like I'm starstruck a little bit. You know, like, but he's an average guy, just like all of us. You know what I mean? He just loves fishing. And just a great guy to talk to.
Justin actually fishes some of our Thursday night bass tournaments, believe it or not.
Yeah. I've seen, you know, some videos where he's gone out bass fishing, and I just enjoy watching a lot of stuff. I was really surprised, actually. It was a while back, we seen that he was running one of our mounts, and I was like, holy crap, like, that's our mount. He's running our mount. Like,
I actually didn't realize that y'all sold mounts and things like that. And so I was doing some research after we had talked the other day. And I actually went and bought a divider. It's like a three or four piece divider, the little black plastic thing that fits in the Hobie drop-in crate.
Yep.
I snagged me one of those. I was hoping it was going to be here so I could be like, look what I got.
Oh, but, man, we dropped the ball.
That's going to be on the AOY domination boat next year.
Well, that's what I like to see. And that's, you know, that's a lot of the reason why too we wanted to get out and fish the Hobie stuff, because like we've you know, kind of switched over to running Hobies. Love the boat, but I wanted to be able to get out and fish with a lot of you guys and compete with you guys and just kind of start a friendship with a lot of you guys. You know, we see you guys on Facebook and Instagram and follow you guys on how you do on the Hobie stuff and to be a part of it. That's what we want to do. We love tournament fishing, but we ain't been able to do it because the business has been just insanely crazy the last couple of years. So now we're like, nope, we're fishing. This is what we're going to do. So kind of like our vacations, through the through the
Yeah.
years. So, but I do appreciate your business, and like I say, if you ever need anything, always reach out to us, man. Message me or whatever. We can make anything happen, basically. So
Absolutely, yeah. I'll keep that in mind. I'm all the time tinkering with something random.
Chris, you said we got another question.
Yeah, Randy wants to know what rod and reel setup to use for spinnerbaits, and do you ever throw them on mono?
I used to actually throw them a lot on mono. That used to be one of my favorite things. Really, the only thing that I use mono for, other than cranking, was I used to use. I had a giant spool of the Bass Pro mono and 12-pound, and it was so cheap. I loved it because I retie a lot because you get hung up and pop it out, and I would retie a lot, so I didn't have to worry about it. But yeah, I used to throw it a lot on mono. Now a lot of times I'll just swap a spinnerbait and a chatterbait out on the same rod. So I just pretty much use fluorocarbon for everything. I just buy those giant spools, like 1,200-yard spools of Sunline Sniper, and I throw 14-pound, a little bit heavier because I think the line, it nicks up a little easier. But both of my spinnerbait and chatterbait setups are Curado K's, the 7 ratio. And right now I've got one with a Cashin. I've got a Cashin rod that I throw spinnerbaits and chatterbaits on, and then I've got a Dobbins rod that I throw a spinnerbait and a chatterbait on. So I really like the Cashin rods. That's kind of what I've slowly been switching to this year. And really the last year and a half, I really like the grip once I started using it. When I pick it up in the store, I always thought it was kind of slick or something, but you get a lot more feel out of those things. That's slowly what I've been swapping to. But currently I have I've got Loomis and Lew's, St. Croix, iRod, Cashin, Dobbins. I've got all sorts of rods sitting over here right now that are just waiting for reels. All my reels are off getting worked on right now. So part of the down season. My boat's in Atlanta getting rigged up, and my reels are here with a local guy in town. So
nice. This is Jordan. Are you looking forward to going to Santee Cooper?
When I first saw that, I went, ugh. Because I've only had one experience on Santee Cooper, and it wasn't a good one. I didn't give it a fair shake though. I think it was the second ever KBF Open that there ever was. I don't remember a whole lot about the tournament. There was probably about 200 people there. I remember Ron Champion had big fish because he caught an absolute giant. He caught like a 25-incher or something like that. And we had a frost. It was like in the middle of March, and we had a hard frost the night before the tournament. And I was 18. My papa drove with me like 6.5 hours down to Santee Cooper. I did not practice at all, and I had no idea what I was doing. Had no business driving down there for such a big tournament. And we had a hard frost the morning before the tournament. And I caught like 2 fish on day one of the tournament, and I was in like 25th place out of like 195 people or something like that. And I thought I was the man in my Pelican kayak, which I paddled around that day. And the day 2 I zeroed, and I was back to being an 18-year-old kid that had no business being there at that tournament because I wasn't a very good fisherman. But that was my first thought with Santee Cooper was, oh my gosh, we're going to go down there and it's going to be tough again. And I'd be lying if the first person I didn't text was Vinny Ferrari and Commish. I'll just call him Commish so I don't mess up his last name again. And I was like, well, just shoot me straight. Is Santee going to be good or is it going to be rough? And he said, I'm going to go like 205 or 210 or something like that. He threw out a crazy number. Yeah. And I was like, man, I said, you got to have some proof to back that up. And he sent me they had a tournament there like 6 months ago on Santee with QCKBF where they had They do the 4-fish limit. And I think 4 guys or 5 guys or something absurd had over 80 inches in their best 4 fish. And one guy had almost 90 or something crazy. I was like, all right, that's where it's going to be. We're going to go take the big sticks to that one, it looks like. So,
Yeah.
hopefully, as I was looking into it, it looks like there's a really good chance for some guys to catch some PBs there. We're probably looking at maybe pre-spawn, spawn, and post-spawn. So I think you can get in the right area and maybe catch all 3, or you can get in the right area and maybe absolutely just freaking wreck them on a post-spawn, which would be great. But yeah, I'm St. T. Cooper is one of the reasonably closer events for me next year on that schedule. So I am looking forward to that. Honestly, I'm looking more forward to it than I am Chickamauga for reasons we mentioned earlier, right? There's going to be 9 million people on that lake, and it's going to be like pulling teeth to get me out of bed to go fish that morning, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's probably going to be a tough one. And last question for you. What other event on the Hobie B.O.S series are you looking forward to going to? Like, is there one that you like, I can't wait to get there?
Yes, there's 2 that really interest me. One I'm probably not going to get to go to, but it really piques my interest. But definitely the Susquehanna River. If the water's up like it was this year, it's going to be an absolute shootout again. I loved it. I fell in love with that place this year. Now, the year before last, when I went up there, I really struggled up there, which blew my mind because I'm a river guy. And I love catching smallmouth, and I love catching them on a spinnerbait, and that's what I was told was the deal up there. And I went by myself and tried to single access everything up there the year before, and I couldn't get around. The water was very, very low, and I really, really struggled. And last year I was like, I'm going up there and I'm going to float and I'm going to cover water like I do here on the river. And I'm just going to go catch fish. And if I catch them, great. If not, then oh well. And I went up there and I had an absolute freaking blast. I wanted to go up there every single Friday. I wanted to go up there this weekend because I had a 3-day weekend. And somebody, I don't remember who it was, Mickey Wood or something like that, posted up on something and had like 96 and a half inches today or something on the Susky with like 41-degree water temp. Jesus. And I was like, that's an otherworldly place when the water comes up a little bit. So if they have some rain and stuff the week of Susky for the Hobie B.O.S, that should be everyone's place to go. Now it's a little swirly. I'm not gonna lie. I'm comfortable on moving water, and that place was swirly. But the other place I mentioned is, we talked about map study and things ahead of time. I'm probably not even going to be able to go to that. There's some other tournaments that weekend, but the Wolf and Fox Rivers up in the Wisconsin tournament, that to me just piques my interest. I want to go to that. I want to learn more about it. There's nothing online about it. I can't hardly find anything about it online very much. I've been texting people up there and asking like, hey man, have y'all ever fished this? And nobody seems to fish it up there. There's not a whole lot of kayak tournaments up there. And man, that right there gets me excited. Yeah. That's one of those places where it's like, that's like break. I mean, that's not only is it new for me, that seems to be new for a lot of people. And that gets me excited. But I've got some other events that weekend, and I'll be honest, I was looking at it and knowing good and well that there's a 50-50 chance I'm going to go to it. I was texting AJ asking him, hey man, do y'all have boundaries for this yet? And he's like, dude, that tournament's like 8-9 months away. And I was like, man, I'm sorry. I was just looking, and God, there's a lot of water up here, and there's all kinds of stuff up here, and there's 30 dams on around that little area, and it could be. I mean, if it's a wide boundary event like some of them are, I mean, there could be an unbelievable amount of water to cover and look and things like that. And I'm as excited to see what goes on there, whether I fish it or not, as probably any tournament on the schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's going to be good. I'm actually looking forward to going to like New Hampshire, you know what I mean? And fishing up there. I don't know what it is. I've always wanted to travel up north.
Yeah.
And fishing something, you know what I mean? I've never had the opportunity to go up north and fish. I did for a Bassmasters, no, it was FLW Open Series, and it was the Oakley. I mean, not Oakley. Shoot, what's the other song? Tag on, having a brain fart here. Anyways, the Costa Series,
Yeah.
and had talked with Dylan Hayes. He's on the fishing FLW and all, well, MLF now, and he's like, "Hey man, I need somebody to sign up with. You want to come up here and fish?" And I was like, "Sure." So I drove 14 hours up there, and the boaters I was supposed to sign. Well, I signed up with him, but it was like some of the draw. A lot of the boaters didn't show up, so I didn't have a seat, and so I had to turn around and drive back home. I even went to the boat ramp that morning, hoping that someone didn't show up and I would get their seat. But so I drove 14 hours back home. After that,
gosh.
so and I was like, man, it was Lake Champlain, so
Yeah.
I was looking forward to fishing that. Wasn't able to do it. So like I'm just like, I want to go up north and fish. I don't care what lake it is. I just want to go up north and go fishing. So looking forward to that. And looking forward to Toledo Bend and Santee Cooper. The rest of them, I don't know about Chickamauga if we'll make that one or not. I really want to. Not sure if we'll make it. But and then possibly going out towards Oklahoma and fishing.
I would love to go back to Broken Bow. It's going to be on my schedule. It's going to be tough with time off and whether I can build up some comp time and stuff to be able to take off more. But yeah, I really enjoyed Broken Bow when I was out there this year. The town was cool that we stayed in. There was it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It reminds me of here when me and Thomas actually went up there, because that was our first tournament on our back-to-back swing last year. That, man, we showed up to our first boat ramp, and it was like everywhere we went was like, man, this place looks like home. And we rolled up to the first spot, and I bet we weren't there 30 minutes, and I had like 3 fish over 17 inches, and I was like, well, let's go. We're done. This is just like home. This is put eyeballs on something and put a bait in front of it, and it was like that pretty much the whole weekend. If it looked good, you fished it, and there was fish there. It was ideal, and I would love to go back there to see if it was just a timing thing for where we were at, or whether we got on a good little area, or if it was just that's an underrated lake. I mean, there's been some really big fish cut out of that lake, so I'm interested to see if we can make that again. That's definitely on the list of things that I would like to show up to next year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to those, and just looking forward to fishing all of them that we can. But like I say, getting out there and meeting a lot of you guys and fishing with some of you guys. So, but Jordan, I appreciate you taking the time to come on, man. I know we kept you late. Everybody's got to go to work in the morning, but I do appreciate it. And don't work too hard pushing snow. Hopefully, you don't get too much.
Yeah, hopefully not. And hopefully they call me in before it's tough to get there.
Exactly. Well, man, good luck to you this year. I'm hoping that you have another successful year, and like I say, we'll definitely be following along and watching the Hobie B.O.S Angler of the Year race and all that. So looking forward to it. But good luck to you this year, man, and we'll be talking to you later. You got me, Jordan?
Cut out. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but you cut out.
Yeah, I was just saying good luck to you this year, and I really appreciate you coming on, man.
There we go. I hear you again. I don't know half of what you said. You cut out. I kind of caught the gist of it. I certainly appreciate you guys having me on here, and I look forward to seeing y'all out traveling around. If I don't I'm half the time and lolling around, not paying attention. So if you see me, holler at me.
All right. Well, that sounds good, man. Well, I appreciate it, bud. You have a good night.
I appreciate it, guys. Y'all have a good one.
You too, buddy. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, guys. Well, I do apologize for the difficulties we've had with sound. Chris, has anything came in? I mean, everybody else said it sounds good tonight.
Nobody's been complaining.
I mean, it sounds good on our end. Yeah. It's just sometimes it seems like it breaks in and out. But I don't know if it's his service. I don't know if it's something with ours. I don't know. But I'm just happy that was able to finally get him on and talk to him. Really nice guy. I just, I touched base about this earlier. And when it comes to consistency, something I've learned with guys like, I'm just going to name, because these are the guys I just have off the top of my head that have been on the show in the last several months is, we've had Drew Gregory. We just had Jordan Marshell on. We had Ryan Lambert. We've had guys like, Casey Reed. We've had Jody Queen. Granted, we haven't had them two on recently, but remember really well conversations. And when you talk to these guys, they're all simple. It's very simple. You know what I mean? It ain't bring this huge box and you just got baits galore.
Yeah.
It's all been simple. It's been what does it say? One objective is to make bow mounts for new wilderness recon. Well, you know, I mean, if you're close, or you know, this is what I tell people before I get into this. What I was going to say, if I tell people, you got a kayak you want to bow mount for, if you guys live close to us in Virginia, whether it be Bedford, whether it be down there in Cortland, Suffolk area, Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, all that area, North Carolina, depending on where you at, man, we can make them. If you can just get the boat to us, sometimes that's the struggle, is getting boats, because boats are expensive. Even trying to get them right now is even difficulty. It's been difficult. So, but yeah, I do appreciate that. And like I say, we'll do our best to try to accommodate everybody's brands and getting mounts for a lot of different manufacturers out there. It's a slow process. It's a grind, but I think 2022 is going to be really good with a lot more product. And we're hoping here in the next, I'm going to say 3 weeks, that we have some really awesome products coming out for you guys, and y'all might like them. I hope y'all like them anyway. So, but anyways, like I say, getting the consistency, all of them are simple. They don't carry a lot of rods. Some might carry a few rods, but like what they throw, the tackle they have, it's all simple stuff. It's not getting carried away. It's not having 400 different crankbait colors and, you know, 10 to 20 different spinnerbait colors and all that, you know, buzz baits. I learned that years ago.
Yeah.
There's 3 different colors you need in a buzz bait: white, black, and white and chartreuse. That's it. And that's the only colors I have. I don't throw nothing else. I don't look at, you know, all these other colors people have, or they make up, or spinnerbaits have been the same way for me too. I have white, black, I have white and chartreuse, and then I have like a glimmerish color, like a little bit of blue tint to it. I mainly throw that one all the time, but
Yeah.
that's the only colors I have there. Just it's keeping it simple when it comes to worms. You know, for instance, like trick worms, I love throwing Carolina rig a lot. I throw a trick worm on a Carolina rig a lot. It's green pumpkin, black, and watermelon seed. That's it. That's basically all I have. When it comes to brush hogs, I throw that a lot on there. And lizards, it's green pumpkin, watermelon, and green pumpkin red flake. That's about it. That's about all I throw on those. I don't worry about buying a lot of other colors because I can throw it on Carolina rig and then I can put it on in Texas rig it. It's the same thing with the missile bait stuff. It's watermelon candy, or grass candy, they like to call it. Green pumpkin, and like a Zematoma, you know, something like that. So just keeping it simple, guys. That's where you're gonna see your consistency come in. When you got so much going on in your kayak that you don't even know where to start, I think that makes it really tough. Now, I do bring a lot of rods and I have a lot of different combinations. And can that mess me up? Possibly. I don't know. I'm going to see if I can whittle things down a little bit this year and not have so much. But a lot of times, if you see like tackle in my boat now, I might have a big box, but a lot of it is like odd and end stuff that if A, B, and C don't work with my normal stuff, that I might have something a little extra to throw, you know. But most time when practice time rolls around, I got to narrow down to where I only got maybe 5 or 6 different boxes in my boat, average, you know, not counting my terminal tackle box and stuff like that. So, but I think that's key, is just keeping it simple, time on the water, and doing your homework off the water as well. Not just thinking you're going to show up and just put it in a spot and you're going to hammer them. And you got to put the time in, no matter what you do. No matter what sport, no matter whatever you do, you got to put your time in, and you got to figure it out. So, was talking before we had all our major difficulties. I was talking about batteries in our last video we did with battery size and, you know, like just people going too small with batteries and all that. So I just encourage people to go check out our latest video. If you don't watch any other one, at least go watch that if you're going to motorize a kayak. Because I think it answers a lot of questions for people. What things we got coming up there, Chris?
Just making general comments.
I got you. I have a common trait proven to Maryland to have the 1103 put on. Oh, I drove to Maryland to have the 1103 put. Oh, I got you. Yeah. Guys, we do a lot of rigging too. So if you're interested in having your kayaks rigged, always feel free to reach out to us. My phone number is on our website. There is, you can reach out to us at oneobjectivebf@gmail.com. You can reach out to us on Facebook. Instagram's a little different. I do go on there and check our messages. Facebook's a lot easier.
Yeah.
I don't get a lot
Well,
of.
you can take Facebook and send it to Instagram. You don't have to do both.
Yeah. So when it comes to
Vice
messaging,
versa.
yeah. And when it comes to, private messaging and stuff like that, we see our emails a lot quicker. But I will say this, you can go on our website and get our phone number. I'm easy to get in touch with.
Yeah.
If I don't pick up, I promise you, I will call you back. It's just, we're that easy to get in touch with. I want to make it simple for people when they're rigging their kayaks. And if they got questions, it needs to be answered,
Yeah.
We'll do our best anyways. But anyways, we do a lot of rigging. We got one. We're going to do a video on now. That should be coming out this week on a Hobie PA12. I think people are going to like that, how we did it. We did some things a little different. I know there's people that put pedals on their Hobies, but we just went a different route of how we did it than other people did. So, but make sure you check that out this week. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you go there, subscribe. If you haven't followed us on Facebook, make sure you do that as well on Instagram. Our New Year's resolution this year is to be more fluent, I guess that's the word I should use, or more active, maybe active.
Yeah.
On social media.
Yeah, that'd be a better word.
Yeah, and I know that we try to stay active, and we'll post something here and there, but it might be sometimes there's been days where we don't post nothing. So my goal this year is to have a post every day, once a day at least, of some kind of information or just a cool looking picture or whatever. Another New Year's resolution is we've already been doing 2 videos a week.
Oh, wow.
A year. Wow. You're really going to grow.
You're really going to throw to them.
You're really working hard there, aren't you? I would like to see us get to 3 videos a week. And people are like, well, man, there's guys that do it one every day. Well, that's hard. Doing 2 a year is hard. I mean, God dang it.
Man, come on,
man. I'm just on it tonight. Doing 2 a week is really hard. It really is. Like trying to get enough content and content that's worth watching, not just something you just throw a video out, So that can be tough. So that's kind of our New Year's resolution this year, is to be more active on our social media platforms. And with us fishing tournaments, I feel like we can be when we get out there and get a lot more content. But like I say, 2022 is going to be a good season. I think it's going to be great for everybody. I'm hoping that people get back to normalcy, I guess, this year. We tried to a little bit on 2021. So I'm hoping 2022 is a lot easier for people this year. And I hope the kayak community just keeps growing like it did. The highlight of tonight, I think, was pretty cool to seeing Kayak Catfish come on.
Oh, yeah.
And comment on, I thought that was pretty cool. I would love to get him on the show. I just wish we could get him on just 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I just want him 30 minutes to talk. So maybe we can keep working with him, get him on. Guys, if you got any guests that you'd like to see come on this year, let us know. I'm working out some stuff right now with a few, but let us know. I'm going to do my best to try to get everybody. Like I said, we stay in kayak and bass boat side of things, so it ain't always going to be kayakers. It ain't always going to be elite guys. We're trying to get everybody. So if you want to see some more manufacturing company guys, guys that run these companies and own these companies, come on and talk. So let us know. We always try to stay in the fishing side and technique side, but we might be able to get some of these other guys on. So,
yeah.
But other than that, guys, I hope you guys have a great weekend. If you're in the area, it's going to be getting snow, be safe. And also this time of the year, I always stress, we see it on the news. We've seen it last week of someone else drowning out on a kayak. Guys, please wear your life vest. I know some of you don't want to hear that, and I'll probably get some pretty hateful comments about it, but please put your life vest on when it's cold outside. Anything can happen. So it's hard to swim in cold water, but other than that, guys, I'll talk to you later. Y'all have a safe week and share those fish with us. See you.